Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use, and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody. This means you! Alright, time to review the Fairly OddParents and their consistent fucketry of adding new characters for the sake of making the show new. And since this is a wonderful Viacom show, I'm going to have issues reviewing it unless I put up the new and improved copyright curtains, because fuck you Viacom, learn what fair use is. So because I didn't start this 2 weeks ago like I did Teen Titans Go Triple Threat, let's just dive in. Episode 1, Fairly Odd Baby. Since this is a whopping 46-minute episode, I'll be skimming through a bit to save time. So the episode starts with Timmy going skydiving when Wanda and Cosmo get distracted by babies. When Timmy gets annoyed and asks why don't Cosmo and Wanda just have a baby, he gets a story of how Cosmo basically ruined any chance of fairies having children. And then there's the side fact that fairies live forever, so it's not like they need repopulation. So Timmy tries wishing up a baby. And because it's not in the rules, when Jorgen von Schwarzenegger tries to stop him, he figures out he's unable to, so Timmy wishes up the fairy's pregnancy. The next morning, Timmy finds that Cosmo has morning sickness. This is where we learn that in fairy world, the men have babies, which I can't help but wonder what Fairly OddParents would be like in a gritty real-life scenario. Anyway, we also learn that instead of 9 months, fairies reproduce in 3. Cut to a short barf montage, and then a montage of Cosmo getting weird cravings, weird mood swings, and finally a baby shower which takes place in the bathroom, because shower. And this is not a Rainbow Rocks thing either. They literally explain that they hold it in the bathroom because it's a baby shower. And because it's the most private room in the house, but still, that was their second reason, not their first one. Anyway, Timmy winds up being the servant boy for this shower, which understandably makes him angry, as he wishes Cosmo would get lost. This scares the rest of the fairies as a full-scale search takes place all across Fairy World and Earth. Timmy, Wanda, and Jorgen decide to check out Anti-Fairy World and Pixie World, and foolishly let the cat out of the bag that Cosmo's having a baby fairy whose powers could be unstable. They then get an idea of where he's at. He's in a field, skipping through flowers. When the baby starts kicking, and from there they go to Dr. Rip Studwell to deliver it. Then they decide to just wish it out. Rip Studwell tries to take Poof out where the light's better, and it turns out it's Anti-Cosmo, which was revealed by Jorgen, who is actually the Pixie leader. Revealed by Anti-Cosmo. And then Mama Cosmo comes in and tries to take away the baby, and is stopped by actual Jorgen, who is stopped by Wanda, who is stopped by Timmy. Whew! Anyway, the baby teleports the trio away after a failed escape attempt, and Timmy wishes for a rocket-powered stroller, of which begins a chase. During of which we hear Mama Cosmo nag at Jorgen, which is more annoying than it is funny. Timmy goes into some woods and loses the fairies, anti-fairies, and pixies for a bit before the baby starts crying and gets them seen. We also learn when it burps, lightning happens. Anyway, Timmy gets a genius idea to take the baby and poof himself back home, while Cosmo and Wanda try to outrun them. Timmy stays with the baby for a bit before giving it to Anti-Cosmo and the lead pixie. He then explains all this to Cosmo, Wanda, and Jorgen, who, understandably, aren't happy. And for the sake of time, they come up with a plan that ends in a Deus Ex Machina LSD fart because baby magic is unstable, yet stable enough to control, or some shit like that. Even in fairy logic, it's not fully explained, but it fixes everything, and they all live happily ever after the end. Love Poof or hate Poof, and consistencies aside, his debut episode wasn't all bad. It certainly was a special episode that did in fact warrant a 45-minute episode. It was the first of its kind, given the fact that up to that point there was only the 3, and putting a baby into the mix could in fact help the series, giving it opens to some cute stories in which I am aware it did. That said, I'm also aware of why everyone seems to be skeptical, as it was saved for the 6th season, and did seem a bit unnecessary at the time. That and Poof only has a selection of episodes that were really dedicated to him in hindsight. Nevertheless, Poof wasn't all that much of a shark jump. The shark jump came 3 seasons later. Hello, Fairly Odd Pet, which starts as Timmy is going through the park and seeing that everyone in Dimsdale has a pet, and Timmy decides he wants one, despite the fact he's an awful pet owner, which they make sure to let us know, using weird new examples instead of the one that had a whole episode dedicated to it. Anyway, Timmy asks for a dog and gets denied, so he wishes for cats in his house because his mother is allergic, and then gets permission to get a dog. So they go to the Fairy World's pet shop because Timmy is banned from all of the Earth pet shops, and we hear about how bad of an idea this is, again, before we meet up with Sparky, who has returned 83 times. They then return home, and Sparky chases off Timmy's mother, whose Timmy father mistakes for a monster due to Timmy wishing for something she's allergic to, you know, like an asshole. Don't worry though, Timmy isn't the only ass in this episode, because that night Sparky proved himself to be a dumbass by burying the house, tearing up the downstairs, and digging a bunch of holes in the street. So, Timmy tries wishing everything back to normal. However, Wanda explains that Sparky buried their wand, which, hold on, how did Cosmo and Wanda poof the house back to the surface literally just less than 2 minutes ago? I mean, with Poof, the inconsistencies were small, and can be argued to be stupidity on the character's part. But in this episode, there's a lot more to be noticeable because they purposely take time to show this. And this is coming from someone who doesn't normally pay attention to consistency. Guys, you know you're fucked when I point this stuff out. Anyway, Sparky gets fleas, which starts turning the town into anthropomorphic dogs. Timmy then asks Sparky to fetch the wands, of which Sparky fucks up, showing that he is either dumb or dumber than Cosmo, but I'll touch on that later. We also learn that around this time, Dog Hair is clogging city drains before Vicky bursts into Timmy's room to kill him, until magic flea powder gets spilled on her, which turns her back to normal. Timmy sees this and gets the idea to crop dust the whole town with the stuff, which works successfully until the plane falls apart and Timmy crashes because Sparky took the only parachute. Timmy then realizes how much of a mistake Sparky was. Overhearing this, Sparky gets sad and runs away, as we're supposed to feel sorry for him, which I guess, to be honest, we are, and this isn't played awfully. Honestly, it isn't. I mean, I still feel shit all for the character, but the execution of this scene isn't all bad. Timmy goes into his room and finds a bunch of chewed up furniture and paw prints that lead to a disc which contains a video of Sparky apologizing for his misdoings, and Timmy feels guilty about what he said. Then they go out searching for the little dolt who's in Timmy's backyard beside the Dimsdale Dam, of which Timmy wished for one day. Not gonna question this one. Just go with it. Anyway, the dam bursts because Dog Hair, and Timmy goes to rescue the dog from drowning when, plot twist, fairy dogs can't die, which should make anyone that felt sorry for him just a little while ago feel foolish. Or so I hope. However, Timmy gets called a good pet owner, Cosmo and Wanda find their wands, and poof everything back to normal. The end. This one is far worse than Poof's episode because, honestly, all redeeming qualities of this episode gets thrown out the window as soon as they hit. Some of the jokes hit funny, but they still wind up being running gags that lose their charm instantly the second or third time through. The consistency issues are far more prevalent and noticeable, and Sparky is just an unneeded character. Honestly. He's just a second Cosmo, but in dog form. If there was any sign the show needed to be cancelled, it was this episode. Because it shows that the writers are grasping at straws at this point. And added another new character. In something that's not even as special. And the worst part is, one season later, they created this episode. Ah, yes, the big fairy share scare. I'm sure all of you were waiting for this one to pop up. After all, my second most watched video on this channel is on the very subject of the ever-becoming infamous Chloe Carmichael. I was bound to cover this eventually, and that I shall right now. So this episode starts with Timmy goofing off in a robot until Cosmo hits the awkward school dance button, causing the robot to go insane. I understand self-destruct buttons are codes for self-destruction. I get it. You know, sometimes your robot goes on a rampage or your innator gets used against you. I understand that. But why, in the good name of Isaac Asimov, do you have an awkward school dance button? Anyway, he gets into school and Crocker introduces Chloe as a student who, and I quote, brilliant, motivated, and won the Nobel Prize for Niceness. Who saved the world from a monster also. Mind you, she has contact with the president, has a zoo in her backyard, was able to afford the most expensive looking house on the block, and has the ability to make people rich and beautiful, knows martial arts, and is everyone but Timmy's friend. Keep this in mind, as this is the biggest flaw this episode has. No one likes a Mary Sue, but I'll expand on that when I get there. Chloe points out today is a parent-teacher conference day, which I have no idea how no one realized this. Even in this world, you're gonna realize if it's a parent-teacher conference day. And they get out of school. Also have no idea why Crocker's happy because he still has to be there. But whatever. Cosmo and Wanda like Chloe, and Timmy says that she doesn't have fairies, so his life is fine. He tries escaping to home, where his dad is rich and his mother is Hollywood beautiful, and that's when he finds out that Chloe is his new neighbor, which drives him up the wall. Yeah. Turns out she gave them lemon squares and gave Cosmo a paraphone, which he proceeds to take a selfie with duck lips. This is where the comedy evolved. This is probably where it's gonna go in the future. Timmy brags again about his fairies, trying to look on the bright side of things, when Jorgen comes around and says he has to share with Chloe. Now, Let me take you back 18 years, Nickelodeon, because it seems like you forgot your basic premise. Timmy got his fairies because his life was miserable. His parents ignored him, he had to put up with Vicky, his life was the lowest it could be, at least at the time. Why does Chloe need fairies? She is too perfect for her own good. As I said, and basically everyone prior to me has said, she is a Mary Sue, a character with literally zero flaws and a life that is fucking perfect. Well, Jorgen answers this by saying there's a fairy shortage because candles are the new thing and that everything happens for a reason. And I'll get to that reason when I get there, but let me just say it is not warranted. Also, if everything in this world has a reason, please explain Sparky. Sorry, a bit of a tangent there, but let's continue. Anyway, they break the news to Chloe, and Timmy wishes to get as far away as possible from her, which takes him to the center of the Earth, because space is totally not a thing, right? Fairy world isn't a thing, anti-fairy world isn't a thing. Are we just gonna forget Fairly Odd Baby ever happened? I mean, I guess Poof is nowhere to be seen in this episode, probably off to fairy school, because I remember that being an episode. Actually, as far as that goes, where's Sparky? We ignoring him too? I'm fine with it either way, but it's kind of weird. Anyway, Timmy escapes through the sewer gate, demonstrating that this is clearly the farthest Timmy can be away from her, right? He tries to make a compromise, asking Chloe what day she wanted, and she claims Friday, so Timmy wishes away Fridays, and then suddenly anti-Poof. Oh, fuck you, Fairly Odd Parents. You're honestly going to tell me that the center of the Earth is as far away as Timmy can be, and then throw out the fucking anti-fairies at us? Go fuck yourselves. Anyway, the anti-fairies show up because Fairy World charges the Great Wand every Friday. And without Fridays, they would never charge it. Instead of, you know, just moving the charging to a different day, do it on like a Wednesday or something. I mean, why has no one pointed this out yet? Anyway, Timmy tries re-wishing Fridays into existence, only to have Cosmo and Wanda lose their wands temporarily, and Jorgen comes to save the day. Timmy then wishes for a wish bot and gets written out of the plot for a few seconds. Chloe makes a wish where everyone must share everything, which works out until she realizes she winds up sharing her house. At this point, it isn't sharing, it's theft, but whatever, it's none of my business. So Chloe unwishes her wish, and before it's casted, Cosmo and Wanda actually lose their wands, something we see in all 3 of the specials. We then learn about why Chloe has to share. Turns out she's not Little Miss Perfect, and makes mistakes. I grant you, the example given is a fucking poor one, as she shows the monster clip from earlier, but with the monster destroying the city afterwards. Something she had zero control over. So there's still no point for her fairies, her life still isn't miserable, and there's a huge inconsistency here which gets on my nerves. She says also that no one wants to be her friends, despite the fact that everyone but Timmy at the beginning of the episode wanted to be her friend. This is fan fiction writing 101, something that annoys me to no end about quite a few TV shows. They follow under every pointless fanfic cliche, be it having a gender-bend character, self-importing, or having something that feels more like a fan OC than anything. Chloe feels more like a self-import, as they cannot be flawed at all, and if they are at all, then it's something so meaningless and petty that it may as well not exist. Anyway, to finish up, they get the wands, wish everything's fixed, and then they live happily ever after. However, I feel disappointed, empty, and hollow. Let me reiterate my point I made in my Kill the Fairly Odd Parents rant. They are out of ideas, so I feel this may be a reoccurring trend in future seasons. So just take the show and cancel it, because they are out of ideas. Let it die as gracefully as they can, which I grant you at this point isn't at all. Anyway, I hope you, the viewer, enjoyed this 3-in-1 review, because there won't be another for a while. These things are difficult to do. I got what I needed off my chest, and now I can get to reviewing normal stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you guys liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, there's a link below to a Facebook page that you guys can follow. Take care.